Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here to review Quantum Leap Season 2, Episodes 2 and 3. So we have a weird editing snafu in Episode 3, because bizarrely, somehow, we have the end of Leap leaping into another person in Episode 3. We all of a sudden have Sam, who leaps back into Jesse Tyler from an episode from the last season. So evidently they didn't know, like, maybe there was a real issue, especially tying in from season 1 to going into season 2. The whole next leap part just really didn't connect, or for whatever goofy reason, maybe there was just a time constraint where they're just like, what should we put up? And that ends up just being it. It's some kind of mistake that they made. Or they had done so many episodes ahead of time that, mistakes could happen. So, with that said, because episode 4 doesn't tie into the leap of episode 3, we have episode 4 that all of a sudden is to do what season 2 episode 1 should have did, but just didn't for whatever goofy reason. Because I went into the next episode because I was like, what the heck is going on here? Am I getting episodes in the wrong order? What's happening? I was so confused. So, anyways, so we have episode 2 calling Disco Inferno. We have Sam leaping into 1976 as Chad Stone, with of course Chad Stone being involved with a stunt double family that it seems that Ray, Chad's father, wants to go on and have all of his sons be in the stunt double career because, of course, because his father had forced him into it. We just have the pattern of, it seems, that both Chad and Chris not being able to choose the way they want to live their lives. And so Chris, it seems, is wanting to be a musician instead of a stunt double. So we have, of course, Sam during this whole episode having him remember that he too has a brother himself, a much older brother called Tom. Come to find out at some point in this episode, Sam will also realize that Tom, his brother, is to possibly be dead. I say possibly be dead because we'll get into other episodes at some point. So, we have Sam leaping into Chad Stone because, come to find out, Al is going to explain to Sam that Sam is going to go on and need to save Chad's younger brother Chris from dying in this stunt. So I thought that was rather interesting. I thought that was cool because, really thinking about it, there are a number of stuntmen that do die on certain movie sets. Come to find out, in one of the Expendable movies, one of the stuntmen did actually die on set while doing some stunt. I think it was like an explosion stunt that just went awry. So, yeah, so stuntmen do die on, in movies. It's horrible, but it happens. So, moving on. So, we have Sam that goes on and survives that, and leaps into 1953, where Sam leaps into Charles Lee McKenzie, who it seems is a sailor or a Navy man. And so, come to find out, Sam is to have gotten off a bus because of possibly either him coming home from either Liberty or kind of being done with his 2 years of service for the Navy. And Sam ends up realizing that he is to have left something very important on this bus, and that, of course, is to be his wife, named Machiko, that he had fell in love with in Japan. And so, come to find out, when Sam ends up going on uh, with bringing Machko home to his family at some point, we then have some friction that starts occurring with certain people in this town not being accepting of exactly or understanding of Machko's ways, or like certain customs or cultural things. And so at some point, we are going to either get to have Sam need to defend his marriage to Machko, or need to go on and defeat certain people who are taking their offense to Machko far too far, or Sam is to have to go on and finally have even family members that Sam, through Charles, is to have accept Machko as a family member. To where at the very end of this episode, I was like, yeah, like I love the whole wedding. That was like a cool way to end the episode, even though that leap was just weird. So, uh, besides the whole race thing of episode 3, still a great episode. I really enjoyed it. Even to the point where you have Machko, who is just kind of running around just without a top on. Because again, like, we have a custom that if it is to, of course, be very hot, like, it's kind of a thing for women to just kind of be running around, not realizing that, like, they have to kind of cover up. And so Al has to go on and explain that to Sam, then Sam has to turn around and explain it to uh, the family, so that they can be like, oh, okay, so this is normal. Oh, okay, we didn't know. So with that said, let's go on and let's go into spoilers so we can double fire this bad boy up. It's about that time, yet again, of course, to go into what is per usual to be spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this episode's. So let's get into it. So, in the very beginning of Disco Inferno, the movie that was never made, because of course, when I was to go on and kind of Google search this, I found out, like, well, there was a disco movie in 2015 for whatever goofy reason, but that's not the same film. More than likely, maybe Disco Inferno, that film, was to be deemed so unsafe that it was never put out. It was never distributed. Or maybe the movie never got finished because they basically blew up a whole set by some part of this episode. So more than likely, it's like, yeah, no. We fired this director and we're going a different direction. So anyways, Disco Inferno. Burn, baby, burn, Disco Inferno. Anyways, let's go on with it. So, Sam ends up leaping into 1976, the disco era. And Sam is immediately like, I don't like disco. Ugh. What? Sam wasn't a Saturday Night Fever fan? Come on. That's probably the only, like, real disco movie I know. Like, anything that involved, like, John Travolta and him doing this a lot was just, like, that's all I can probably remember. And Do the Hustle. Do the Hustle, as Al's kind of doing the hustle. Even though that song, of course, is very demanding for everyone to go on and do the hustle. You better do the hustle. Do the hustle now. Anyways, so let's go on. So Sam is dancing along with this woman that he has no interest dancing with, to where he's just like, get away from me. And so Sam, further and further, is to be pushed to a part of this this dance floor. And all of a sudden, we then have this gangster who is shooting up Sam, forcing him to go flying into this glass and have him fall onto the ground instead of this mat. We then, of course, have Ray, who is yelling at the director, Rick, because that mat was supposed to kind of break Chad's fall. And since this mat was not there, because this director doesn't give a about the stunt double safety, we have Ray who's just like, you know what? Like, this movie that we've been on has been very unsafe the whole entire time, so we're pulling out. Like, I'm done. And we bizarrely have Rick throughout this movie, I think, call people baby for whatever weird, goofy reason. So Rick ends up turning to both like Chad and is turning to both Chris is like, well, hey, like are you guys out, baby? Are you babies out? Like, so Chad ends up looking at his dad and he's just like, well, if he's out, like I'm out too. Like, see you later. So Chris ends up having a little bit more of a delay, but he's like, yeah, I'm out too because they're out. So Chad ends up kind of getting his leathered body armor suit off, and Chris is trying to help him with it. And so Tracy, who goes on and does the music for the film, is talking to Chad and Chris. And so it really seems that Tracy is wanting to get some of that Chad. Tracy's like, yeah, that guy's shirtless, and I want me some of that. So Tracy is talking. She gives him like her card that she's done the music for this movie, and I'm kind of wondering if like Sam is gonna help Chris by like, hey, like work with that girl. Like she does music for this movie, so yeah, like work with her, and maybe he'll get some music tracks in a film somehow. So Sam is talking to Tracy, and Tracy is to ask Sam. It's like, well, hey, like, how many bones have you broken, like doing this kind of job? And Chris is like, yeah, like Chad has broken every bone in his body. And so Tracy's like, oh my god, every bone? What about the one bone that like makes babies? She didn't say that, but wouldn't it have been funny? So, uh, really, just Chad, like you could tell that Tracy is just on this guy like nobody's business and wants this guy so badly. So, and you would have thought like Al would have stated like, yeah, after all, Chad and Tracy get to be married to one another, and it all works out, because this girl has a goal in life to get to this guy. So after both Chad and Chris are done talking to Tracy, they then go on to go to this bar. So, or no, 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 no. We have Sam and Chris talking to Ray, and so Ray is to talk about how unsafe that set was, and then Chris is talking about that he just wanted to do one stunt so he can get his stunt card, and Ray is just like telling Chris to put his hands up so Ray can just start punching him and like just grab Chris and do this like really aggressive father move, and I'm just like, ugh, like that's so disgusting. But we have Ray that's telling Chris, it's like, well, we'll make a man out of you soon. But then Ray is to also mention to Chad, it's like, well, hey, we have that other stunt where you're like falling from that building, and like, or do you want Chris to do that stunt instead? And Chad's like, no, like I'm gonna take on that stunt. Because after after Sam was to go on and talk to Tracy, we then finally have Chad who sees Al, and Al ends up stating it's like, well, the whole reason why Sam has leapt into Chad is because he's going to go on and need to protect Chris, who's his younger brother, from dying on a set. And Sam is just like, well, okay, like, so, like, don't have him go on and do any stunts or do anything because he's going to die while doing them. And then, so Sam is just like, okay, message received. So, we then go on and have Chad and we have Chris going to this bar. And we have Chris who ends up meeting up with a girl, I believe her name is Shannon. And so, while Chad is off in the bar, just kind of looking at his reflection in the mirror and like, yeah, let me adjust my hair, let me... Because that's what Sam keeps doing throughout this episode. He keeps looking in this mirror so that way he can, like, continue to, like, look at his doppelganger. But still, like, Sam goes on, is like, yeah, I'm this handsome man. I've leaped into this handsome man. Yeah. So... Chris is talking to Shannon, and it seems that Chris is thinking, like, oh, you're just talking to me because you're really interested in my older brother. Like, I get it. He's good looking. He does stunts. I don't, but I'm a musician. But so Shannon is to go on and tell Chris, it's like, oh no, like, I like simpler guys. Like, I like guys who wear, like, cowboy boots and wear jeans and wear a jean shirt. And then Chris is just kind of looking, and he's like, ah. So you're saying that you're interested in me, I see. Okie dokie. So Chad is by himself around all this alcoholic beverages, and we all of a sudden have Tracy. She's coming back. She's trying another attempt on Chad here. So Tracy comes to see Chad and is talking to him again, and she ends up giving him a mood ring. And Chad is like, oh, or Sam is like, oh my god, a mood ring? Like, that really tells us the time, right? Because Sam ends up stating, like, what exactly a mood ring does, and then Tracy goes on to explain exactly what a mood ring does. It is to, like, have the colors to show people what kind of mood you're in. And so when Tracy is looking at Sam's ring, she realizes that it's, like, black. And she's like, well, hey, like, maybe you and me can get together and I can turn that ring back to blue. And so Sam is like, okay, all right. Like, that sounds great. So after Chris and Chad going on enjoying their bar hopping time, we have Sam that goes back home to see that Chris is playing on this guitar, miming a guitar here. Just randomly, like, really destroying the guitar with my fingers. So Sam is hearing something that Chris is playing, and so Sam is like, wow, like, that actually sounds really great. Like, why aren't you going on and really showcasing this talent? And Chris is just like, well, like, it's just a hobby, it's nothing, and, like, it's nothing that our father would accept me to do. And Sam is like, so what? Like, do it anyways. Like, here's that Tracy card. Get her to, like, have you do a song for a movie. Go on and do it. But anyways, so Chris goes on and states to Sam that he wants to bring a woman over. And Chris is stating to Sam, it's like, well, yeah, like, I know that you go on and, like, steal all my women, so how about you just not go on and try to hit on this girl when she comes by? And Sam is like, do I do that with every woman? And Chris is like, yes, you do. And Sam is like, all right, like, I'll be your wingman, buddy. I'll help you out. That's not exactly what it said, because a wingman doesn't really exist, but at this time period, but still. So I'm going on and I'm really just trying to improvise and say some weird, goofy things that sound funny. So, and it might not exactly line up into the episode, but still. So we have Chris, who brings Shannon over, and Sam now is to, like, basically joke around about how he knows so much more than both Chris and Shannon do. So Sam is talking about this Saturday Night Live episode where he's like, oh yeah, like we're going to have this Reagan sketch that Chevy Chase does where he falls on his butt, and then they have to do a whole song, I think, at some point about Chevy falling on his butt at some point. And that how he gets injured during this. Is this the one where Chevy Chase gets injured in the Saturday Night Live skit? I don't remember. It's been such a long time ago. Like, I know that something happened where he falls and he gets injured, but I don't know if that was the one thing. So, and there was also the Coneheads where the one guy was hosting and, like, the Coneheads were, like, having all these goofy answers. So, and Bill Murray was the host. So after this, they end up starting to talk about politics. And Sam, it seems, to be fairly knowledgeable about politics. And Chris is just like, Chad, like, when do you know anything about politics? And Chad is like, well, I have a secret interest about it. And so Shannon is stating like, well, hey, I have tickets for us to go on and go to this kind of like presidential thing. And Sam is like, well, yeah, like definitely go on and look into that, and like we'll all go together. And Chris is looking at Chad. It's like, you trying to steal my woman? What the? Sam, come on! Trying to steal my woman? But no, like Chad is just trying to like be a wingman and support Chris. So, so the next thing, we go on to have Sam, who's going on to the set of Earthquake, which has to be a legitimate movie because bizarrely at some point in this episode we actually have archive footage from the movie Earthquake where we have the actor Leon Green who goes on and tries to save this man and he falls to his horrific death. So we have Sam that is with this extra, and come to find out every time Sam is to be with this woman and they are to have had like a significant relationship with one another, Sam goes on, it's like, well, I don't know who you are, because of course Sam doesn't. So every time, every one of these women are just like, well, yeah, like, we had a thing before, and then Chad is just like, oh, did we? The women are just like, oh, so, like, oh, it was just a fling for you. Oh, I see. So this stunt woman ends up getting upset with Sam, and so this woman ends up pushing, like, Sam, like, off, as of course Sam is to be very, like, afraid of this whole jump, to where he's, like, talking to himself as for actually just talking to Al. So the stunt woman ends up falling to her death and screaming, and then she's like, yeah, like, you know, I'm a really good screamer. Like, whatever. So we have Sam that's holding on, and so all of a sudden we have this, like, this archive footage where Leon Green is trying to get to this guy. He's like, hold on. So we all of a sudden have Al who's turning to Sam. It's like, oh my god, that's Leon Green from Earthquake. Oh my god, this is amazing. And so, like, Sam is like, I'm gonna die here. I'm gonna fall to my death, Al, and all you can think about is this movie star. So finally, like, Sam's hands are bleeding, so Sam finally falls, and we're assuming he's gonna fall to his death. A lot of surprise in this episode. I really liked it. So Sam falls to seemingly his death to fall on another thing of glass, because if you've ever seen a Friday the 13th movie, man, do those characters go through a lot of glass in those films. Just, there's always some window where Jason goes through or grabs somebody and puts them through a window. It happens a lot, especially once we get around, like, after, like, 3 or 4 or 5. There's just a lot of window stuff that happens bizarrely in all those films. And you would think that after a while, people will just be like, I don't want to go through a frickin' window. Are you kidding me? I've gotten cut 85 times in this film. But so Sam goes through this this thing that has glass in it, and then he falls onto this mat. And so Sam is just like, well, okay, like, that's another stunt on the books. So we have Sam that goes on and talks to the actress that pushed him, and she's like, yeah, I'm quite a screamer, right? So they go on, and so after that, Sam, oh my god, Sam is to go to tell Ray, I think, that, like, hey, like, go to this bar, your son's going to be performing there, and Ray is like, sure. So from what I remember, so Sam goes on to go to this bar, and Chris is performing, and Ray is just in the back of the bar, and he's already had like a 6-pack full of beer. And so Sam goes on to tell Ray, it's like, well, hey, like, you should be there, like, in front of the stage, just clapping on your son, supporting him. And Ray is like, well, I can hear the music from back here, fine. And Sam's like, that's not the point. Like, get up there, support your son. like clap for him so he knows that you care. And Ray's like, ah. So Sam goes out there with Shannon, and it's like really trying to like support Chris. Is like, yeah, like you do it, man. Like you sing that song, even though you might be lip syncing the whole time, and you're trying to perform like a Johnny B. Good, Back to the Future kind of thing going on here. But hey, like with Michael J. Fox and anyways with the guitar, yeah, I can make sounds too. Anyways, as well as just miming. Air guitar. That's my air guitar. Anyways, making jokes. So Chris goes on and performs this song, and everybody's like, yeah, everybody's won over by it. I'm won over by it. The guy that's probably in the bathroom is also won over by it. So we then have Ray that goes on and is like, okay, golfer's clap, whoop-de-doo. And then Ray walks out, and Chris is just like, my dad is never going to accept me being a musician. He just never will. So Chris gets so upset that he goes on to confront his father, and like Ray's just stuck in his ways because, of course, like, well, my dad was to be a stuntman, my dad's dad was to be a stuntman, so like, and Ray is to state that Chris was born soft because Chris had gone on to be with Chris's mother, and so Chris's is just different because he was raised by his mother. So that's why he's not wanting to really go on and be a stuntman, and instead wanting to be this musician thing. So Chris confronts Ray, and we have Ray that says all this crap to Chris. It's like, oh, like, that's because you're soft, you're not a real man. So Chris goes on and knocks his own father out, and then goes on to call up Rick, who was his director, and is to say, like, hey, you got anybody for that fire stunt for that movie? Like, then I'm going to do it. And Rick is just like, okay, all right, because I don't got anybody, so you're it. So, Tag, you're it. So, we have Sam the next day that goes on to talk to Ray, and Sam is asking Ray, it's like, well, hey, like, do you know where Chris is? And Ray is like, well, what, did you think that he would come here so that way he can like gloat about like the damage that he did to my face? And Sam is like, no, like, I didn't see him the night before, so like, do you know where he is? And Ray is like, well, maybe he went on to do that stunt, do you think? And Sam's like, yeah. So they run off knowing how unsafe this movie really was. So Chris ends up going on into this movie set, and Chris is to supposedly get this guidance from this director, but it seems like this director is really all over the gosh darn place. When, like, Rick is talking, like, you can just tell that, like, he's sitting on this, like, this camera that has this crane on it, but then he doesn't want to sit on the camera that has a crane on it, and then he's, like, kind of moving around all over the place to say, like, okay, like, the stuntman is going to go here, and this is going to explode, and this is all going to happen. And so, like, Rick is saying all this stuff that it's like, what are you even saying? What am I even saying? What is everyone saying? So we have Chris that comes into this scene, and the whole set piece that Chris is in just erupts and just explodes, and then collapses on top of him. So Rick is like, what happened? That's not what was supposed to happen. And so Sam and Ray run off, and so, like, Sam is telling Ray, it's like, well, hey, stay here, I'm going to go on and I'll find Chris. So Chad is kind of running through the set. Al is going on and telling Sam, it's like, well, hey, uh, like, Chris is just over here, like, and so Sam is like, well, hey, like, guide me because you can find out where he is better than I can. And Al's like, okay, like, that sounds great. So Al goes on and is shouting to Sam to, like, hey, like, I'm over here, like, follow my voice. So Sam is continuing to be guided by Al to find where Chad is. Chad has a broken leg, and so Sam just grabs Chris's body and tosses it over his shoulder, and so Al is to have to guide Sam to get out of there. So luckily they get out of there, and so the following thing after that is now Chris's estate to Ray. He's like, well, hey, I finally got my stunt card. Even though the stunt probably won't be seen in the movie whatsoever, still, Chris still got his stunt card, and Ray's like, yeah, like, so you did a stunt. So you finally did something. So we have them going on and just hauling Chris away. And so the next thing we end up seeing is that the family's all together, sitting down, even with Shannon. And so Sam goes on and gets a beer and is all of a sudden talking to Al. And so Al doesn't go on and is to state like, okay, well, the aftermath of all this story is Chris goes on and it has become this big, lavish musician and this and that. Everything works out for everybody. No. Instead, Al goes on, and since Sam had been talking about his brother, his other real brother, and realizing how much Tom, Sam's brother, had to really go on and guide Sam to, like, get him to go into MIT or to go on and do all the physics stuff and all, like, kind of help and guide him throughout, like, the years. And Sam is to have more respect for Tom, like, being the older brother, because now Sam is in that same predicament with Chris and trying to guide Chris to be much more safer and helping him out. So finally, at the end of this episode, we have Al that technically gives Sam a picture of Tom. And so when Sam tries to grab the picture, Al's like, I'm sorry, Sam, but I'm just a hologram. I have to remind you of that. So, like, this picture is also a hologram also. And so Sam is like, yeah, I get it. But, like, it means a lot that you did that. And because Al, of course, can't go on and still, like, tell Sam the truth. Like, Sam just has to remember this stuff. And instead of having Al, like, really help him out along the way. So Sam is now asking Al, it's like, well, why am I still here? And Al's like, don't know. So we have Sam come back in the room and is watching on as, like, Chris is to have this cast, but Ray is like, well, hey, as soon as that leg heals, we're going to get you more stunts. And so Sam is going on of like, well, wait a minute, maybe Chris is going to be a musician instead. And how about we go on and finally have this bet going that is to finally have Ray go on and accept that Chris is going to become a musician. And so they're all watching this TV set where President Ford and the First Lady are getting out of this plane. So Sam makes a bet that the president is going to trip and fall from off of this plane. And if he does do that, then Ray is going to go on and accept Chris for being a musician. And if he goes on and does that for the rest of his life, then that's what he does. And Ray will be the supporter of that. And Ray's like, I don't know. And so it's like, well, bet on it. Because if Sam is to really be as good as he is, as knowing as the history is to be a thing, then he can make this bet. And Al's like, oh my god, this is brilliant. Good job, Sam. So we now have Chris, who's just like, well, like, hey man, you're betting on my life, and Sam is just like, trust me. So we have both Ray and we have Chris. We have everybody who's like watching, and Sam ends up like turning to Al, is like, he's seriously gonna trip, isn't he? And Al's like, I don't know, I don't remember. And Sam is like, oh my god, Al, what do we do? So Sam is like, trip, trip, trip. So Ford ends up tripping and falling, and then Sam turns to Ray and he's like, okay, like we made a bet. So Chris is just like, all right. And so that's of course when Sam is kind of like thumbs up, and then he leaps. So he really helped out Chris in a massive way, and was to have known a little bit of history to have this all work out. So now let's go on to the Americanization of Machko. So we then have Sam, who is to leap into the sailor, who of course to be Charles Lee McKenzie. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything that I forgot about from the last episode. If there's any little moments in there that I, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in that episode. So I'm trying to think. Anyways, I think we're fine. So going on to the next episode. So even though it seems that Sam again doesn't know who he is, he can go on and make some clear consensuses and figure out ways to find out his identity by always kind of thumbing through his wallet or going on and just trying to figure out what year it actually is. So Mackenzie, or Sam, is to be coming off this bus, and so what Sam immediately does is looking into the reflection to see who he's leaped into. So Sam looks at the bag of this guy's luggage, and it's like, well, it's luckily he had this thing of luggage on him. So all of a sudden, Sam is to be met by Henry Mackenzie, Charles's father. It's like, well, hey, like Charles, like, yeah, like let's let's go home and let's see your mother. And so they end up driving off into this truck, and we all of a sudden have Machko, who ends up coming out of the bus, and she's like yelling for her husband. She's like, Charles, like, where are you? And so all of a sudden we have Machko, who is just wandering around town, and we have Rusty, who's kind of looking at Machko like, I don't like you. So Machko is to be found by this deputy, or this officer, or this police officer. He's like, excuse me, miss, like, why are you just kind of wandering around? And Machko's like, well, like I was supposed to be like from off this bus with my husband, but like, and so she just starts to like speak Japanese, and so the officer's just like, okay, well, like, we'll figure things out. So Sam goes on home, and we all of a sudden have Naomi, who is talking about like, I'm going to give me some of that Charles. So Lenore is talking to Naomi, and like Lenore just kind of walks off. She's just kind of like, ugh, like, this woman is disgusting. But she's probably going to be the only woman that's going to be like going to go with my Charles. So so Sam makes his way home, and we have, of course, have it when immediately Sam is to sit down. We have Naomi, who like grabs Sam's hat, is sitting on his lap, and is really just trying to butter up Charles and like kissing him and all kinds of things. And like Sam is just like, like, no, like, I don't want to be with you. But there is going to be one time where weirdly, like, Sam goes on and doesn't want to really be with anybody, but then that's going to like backfire on him, and in a big way, because especially in the beginning of these leaps where there's going to be bigger and bigger problems, the more and more Sam makes these these mistakes. So we have Sam that is kind of not really interested in Naomi. And then all of a sudden, we do have Machko that gets dropped off by this police officer. And so the police officer is stating that it's like, well, this woman is to state that she is married to Charles. Is that correct, Charles? And Charles is like, well, that seems correct. And Lenore and Henry are looking at Charles like, oh my God, you marry this woman? How could you? So we go on and have Charles and Henry and Lenore kind of talking with Machko, and Machko is trying to make like Henry and Lenore happy, and so we have Machko that asks like Henry, it's like, well, hey, like, do you want me to like clean your feet? And Henry's like, what? You want to do what? And so Sam goes on and explains to Henry, it's like, well, hey, it's a custom. Like, it's something that they do. And so Henry's like, well, if it seems like a custom. And Lenore is like, well, you're not getting your feet cleaned by this woman. Like, I'm sorry, but no. So Henry's just like, oh, okay, all right. Like, because my wife said no, like, we're not going to do that. So we just continue to have Machko that doesn't really fit in with this family, but we have Lenore that is a state that Machko is going to have to be in the room that Eileen used to occupy, and so Sam is like, used to, like, what's going on here? So come to find out, Sam is to realize that, like, through Al, or I think Lenore ends up stating what happens to Eileen and how she was to die. Sam finds out that Lenore had given her own life, had taken her own life, and so Sam is like, okay, all right, so like I'm having to like realize how like sensitive this is. Like Lenore is still dealing with it and is still not being able to forgive Eileen for like her killing herself off. So a lot of this is still fresh because of course this was a year ago, and so Charles wasn't probably there during that whole time, yada yada yada. So Sam is to go on and be with Machko as Machko is having these difficulties. Machko goes to try to go on and put rice into this pan, and Lenore ends up dumping it out because Lenore is just like, well, like we have breakfast and more, we don't have rice. And so Machko is just like, okay, all right, well, normally rice is what I would eat, but I guess not when I'm here. So we have Lenore, or we have Machko that's realized that she's just getting Charles's family to get more and more upset. So Machko just tries to distance herself to the point of her being on these steps, and Sam's to like walk up next to her and just be like, hey, like, what's going on? And so Machko is to just be like, well, I just don't think that like things are working out. And Sam is just like, everything's fine. Like we're gonna like, it's gonna work itself out. Like we're gonna figure something out here. And so Machko is like, well, it would be nice for me to go on and like get some new clothes and maybe even get some of like the like some of like American clothes. And Sam is like, great, like let's go on together and I need to get new shirts too, so it works out perfectly. So Sam and Machko go out, get some clothes, and we of course have Rusty, who is an a-hole. And so Rusty decides to go on and paint a unwelcome sign by saying like, go away, on this door. there's a whole slur thing on there, but I'm not going to say that crap. So when both Sam and Machko return to this vehicle, there's a sign there that says "Go away," and so we also had Sam that took Machko and had her learn to drive, and like Machko was talking to Sam, and Sam is like, well, like, yeah, like, think about the future. Like, if anything, like, women are going to get equal rights to men. They're going to be able to get jobs. And Machko is like, well, it seems that, like, your mother does everything for your father. And Sam is like, well, yeah, like, my dad had, like, worked really hard and kind of brought home the bacon. And so now that he's kind of retired, it seems that Lenore is trying to take care of him more. And so Machko is to mention, it's like, well, I guess all men from Japan like are retired, and so Sam is like, well, yeah, I guess they are, I guess. So that's when they go off and go and have Sam teach Machko how to drive, and eventually go on to have her go shopping with him. So we have Sam that also to again try to win Machiko over. It's like, well, hey, like, do you like baseball? And Machiko's like, yeah, because of course, like in Japan, they also have baseball there. So it's like, all right. So we have everybody getting together in the town, and so like Machiko is just kind of like, yeah, get him. And so like Henry's like, Machiko, you know baseball? And Machiko's like, yeah. So we have them all playing baseball. And so at one point, I think we have like Sam playing like second base. So it's like, what? He's not playing outfield like he was in the other episode. So Sam goes on and catches this ball, and I think he does like a double where he ends up getting one person out on second base and first. So we then go on to have Sam, who is to go on and now hit for his team. And we have Rusty, who is wearing this Toledo jersey, my bad. So Rusty goes on and is like, I'm going to get this guy. And so we have Rusty that goes on and beans to try to hit Sam's head. And the umpire is going Rusty, like, well, hey, like, this isn't pro ball. Like, these guys don't have helmets on, so like, hey, like, kind of like, come on, like, no sweet chin music. So Rusty's like, all right, okay. So Rusty is doing the next pitch, and so they're at being, and so Al's like, okay, like, this next one is gonna be dead center, so like, hit this one. So we go on to have Sam, who smacks it, and he's to almost get like an inside the park home run almost. So we have at one point where I think Rusty tries to go on and like attack Charles here, and it was like uncalled for. So they now realize that like Rusty just does not like Charles because of course of who he's with. So Charles is like, well, that's not going to change because I'm married to this woman. So and I think they end up doing this whole baseball thing like right after like the barn incident, which I'll get to now. So Sam, after going on and getting the whole thing that states go away, we have Sam goes in the barn, it's just tossing this hay. He's just like, this sucks. Like, I hate doing this job. Like, I done it so much as a kid. This sucks. All this hay. This hay isn't even properly, like, tied together. I'm just flinging crap. This frickin' sucks. So, we have Naomi, who's laying it on thick part 2. And so Naomi is to find Sam and is really just wanting to just jump on top of Sam is to really just have Sam like touch her legs, touch my legs, touch them. And Sam is just like, I'm married. And so we have Machka that is just kind of putting out her clothes, and like she's preparing them. It's a really hot day, so she's just kind of putting them on uh these things outside to just kind of let them breathe. And like it seems that Machka is going to be doing a lot of breathing because she, of course, is now topless. So Sam is talking to Naomi, and Naomi is kind of flinging Sam around, it seems. And Al comes in. It's like, well, hey, Sam, out of all the times that you've given me crap about all that dirty talk that I've ever said to you, and like, how can you go on and be throwing around like in the hay with this woman when Machka is going to come in here and see that you're doing this? Like, how could Machka just like face what you are going on and doing with this woman? And so Sam is like, well, no, like this isn't the same thing, like yada yada yada. So we have Sam that ends up falling from this hay, and so Machka ends up running into the barn because she had heard some loud noises. So we have Lenore and we have Henry, who's driving with the priest to go on and talk about the possible wedding that they are going to have in the USA. So that way, like, they could have this double wedding, and so that way everybody knows that Sam and Machka love one another, because they do. So we have Sam that is to kind of get Lenore off of her, or off of him, I should say. So Sam ends up running off to see that Machko is topless, and so Sam is to go on and kind of put like his shirt over her to protect her, because censorship in, of course, these times of age of a show. So all of a sudden we have like we have the priest, we have the parents of Charles, who are all watching as Machka had run to the barn with Machka being topless. So they're like, what the heck is going on? And Charles is just like, hold on a minute. Let me explain, because Al knows what's going on, so I'm going to explain what's going on. So Al ends up stating, because when it ends up getting hot outside, we go on to have a number of Japanese women who decide to go on and like take off their clothes to like it's a cultural thing. So Sam ends up going on and explaining that to the priest and to the parents, and so like the priest was just like, well, like I wasn't really offended, I was just wondering what was going on. So the priest is to go on and just be like, well, hey, like whenever you guys want to do what you want to do, like we'll accept it. So the priest walks away, and so again we just kind of have like Lenore and we have Henry. They're just like, like this is so weird, this is so unusual. So we have Sam that goes on and is talking to Lenore, because it's like, dude, we need to square this up. So Lenore is to state, it's like, well, I love you, Charles, and we of course have Charles is just like, well, I'm sorry, but I'm married to Machka. Like, I've already married this woman, and I'm not going to go back on that. So we have Naomi, who is asking Sam, it's like, well, you need to say that you love this woman. And Sam is like, I love Machka. Clear and simple. So Naomi is like, well, you also had carved a piece of wood that said that you loved me. And so she's sitting on this bench, and so she moves over to showcase that Charles loves Naomi. And Sam is like, well, that's too bad, because that was 2 years ago. And so Naomi is also talking about how she's gone on to support Sam's family, especially after Eileen was to go on and to have taken her own life. And so Sam is telling Naomi, it's like, well, like, that's great and all, but again, like, I've already married this woman. There is no going back on that. I'm sorry, but that's just how things are. So Naomi is to take Machka after Machka is to have all these new dresses and clothing and whatever. So Naomi takes Machka to this kind of picnic where all these people are having, and so Naomi is telling Machka like how to talk to people and is putting makeup on her. And so Machka goes on with Naomi to speak with these people, and Machka ends up stating how fat they are. And so then she ends up walking off, realizing that these people were kind of very offended by what Machka said. So she ends up walking off, and so they're like, well, I guess fat means something different where she's from. And like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. So Naomi is talking to Machka, and Machka's like, you know what? I don't think that you're a good friend. Like, I don't think that you have like my best at heart. So like, bye. Like, I'm getting out of here. So Machka runs off to Sam, and like she's all like upset, and she's almost in tears. And Sam is just like, what's going on? What's happening? So Machka explains like Naomi made me state that these people were fat, and so Sam is like, so what? Like it's okay. Like again, like we're gonna learn how to just handle all of this. And so Sam is just kind of wiping off all of Machka's makeup to make her look way better than what she did look. So Sam is going on and is like, yeah, let's just clean up your face. Like let's just clean up all this makeup. You don't need all this stuff. Come on. So Sam is like, it's fine. Like we're like nothing's gonna happen between the both of us. We're still gonna be married. We're still gonna be in love. Nothing's going to change that. Like, let's just find a way to just kind of handle everything with what we have to handle. So we now have a storm that ends up happening in this episode. Another one of those disaster kind of episodes. So we have Sam and we have Henry, I think, that are kind of like preparing things, getting ready for the weather. So we have both Machka and we have both Lenore. And I think we go on and we have like Lenore who's giving Machka crap about the whole fat thing. And Machka's like, well, like, I'm sorry that I've kind of like disgraced you and this and that. And so we have Lenore who's just like, well, like, I don't know, like, I don't think I can go on. Like, if I can't forgive, like, Eileen for taking her own life, like, I don't know if I can forgive you, Machka, for what you have gone on and done here. So Machka realizes that, like, Machka won't be ever accepted by Lenore because of cultural differences, whatever garbage reason that really is. So we go on and have Machka who runs out of the house. And so we have Sam who goes back in the house. It's like, well, hey, where's Machka? Like, she needs to be as safe as everyone else is. And Lenore's like, well, she ran off. And Sam was like, fuck. Like, I guess I'm going to go on and run after her because, like, she's my lover. So Henry goes on and is looking at Lenore. It's like, God, like, why do you have to be just so difficult? So Sam ends up running or driving with a truck for Machka. And we have Machka who's running off and she's crying. I don't know, like, you can't really tell because it's also raining and she's running, so I can't tell if she's crying while it's raining. It's a whole thing. So we have Rusty with his vehicle, and he's like, he pulls over. It's like, well, hey, like, that's that one girl, and so, like, I'm gonna pick her up. So Machka doesn't realize that this is Rusty, the a-hole guy. So he's just an a-hole. That's who he is. So Sam ends up driving, trying to figure out where Machka is, hoping that she's safe because he loves her. So Al at one point is to go on and, like, kind of hologram his way into Sam running him over. So Al's like, hey, like Sam, you needed to have gone right that way, because Rusty now has Machka and you gotta help her. So come to find out, Rusty has Machka and is pulled off to this place. And so Rusty is going on and talking about how before he was to leave for the military, Rusty was to have gone on and been this pitcher. That he had a really good slider, a really good curveball, a really good changeup. Whoever knows what else kind of pitches are, like knuckleball. He doesn't say knuckleball. Like there's palm ball and there's all kinds of other pitches. There's weird, interesting ways that certain pitchers do their kind of deliveries, and I always thought that that was really cool. So I'd go on and just find out how pitchers like deliver their balls, because it's just interesting to see how they all do it. So we have Al that is trying to have Sam kind of get to Rusty. So Rusty is having this story about him going on and being a pitcher, but then I guess maybe he was drafted into being in the military, and then when Rusty came back from the military, like everything was gone, as if like he had lost an arm. And so basically Rusty's jealousy of him getting his dream taken away from him, which was becoming a pitcher, now is to want him to take that out on Machka because of World War II. So, possibly. So, or just him being ignorant. So, Rusty goes on and is really wanting to kill off Machka. And so, we have Sam that makes his way to Rusty. And so, Rusty and Sam starts fighting. We have at one point where there is a piece that ends up getting flung, and this hits Machka in the head. And so while Sam and Rusty are fighting, Al is calling out to Sam, saying like, "Oh my God, like Machka ends up getting hurt. Sam, get to Machka because I think she's gonna die." So Sam is fighting with Rusty, and things are going pretty well as far as the fight is concerned. It looks like a pretty good fight. But so we go on to have Sam, who goes to kind of punch Rusty out, and then Sam goes on to get to Machka. So they end up going to the hospital. It seems that Machka seems to be fine, and so we now have Charles talking to Lenore about the hospital, and so this is kind of reminding them of the whole like Eileen thing and so on and so forth. So really, I think we have a moment here where Charles is trying to tell Lenore, it's like, well, hey, like you need to accept this like this woman, like this marriage, that everything, like you need to accept this. So because Charles is going to marry this woman, like he's already he's already realized that for the longest time now, and nothing anybody can say or do is going to change that. So finally we have Sam, who's marrying Machka here, and Sam is turning to Al. It's like, well, hopefully I actually leap before this wedding legitimately goes off, because like in all honesty, like if I go in and actually marry this woman in front of God and everything, like this would be wrong, because Sam's gonna have to go on and is gonna have to fall in love with a number of different women, and is to have to go on and have Sam do all these things and so on. So yeah, so Sam here is really trying to state that it's like, well, hey, like I don't want to get married to this woman because it's like not right. It doesn't feel right. So Al's like, well, maybe you are gonna leave soon. It makes the most sense, but why is like things not going to happen quite yet? I'm not quite sure. So all of a sudden we have Lenore, who ends up walking in with a Japanese gown on, and we had Machka in the beginning of this episode that was going to give Charles's parents uh, these Japanese gowns, this Japanese attire, and Lenore ends up saying to Machka, it's like, well, I already have a robe. And so Machka's like, oh, not quite a robe, but okay. So by the end of this episode, we have Lenore who's wearing the attire and is like bowing, as Machka is to have gone on and bowed to Lenore, and Machka is bowing to Lenore before because it's showing respect. So now Lenore is going to go on and do the same thing to Machka, and then Machka bows at Lenore. It's like, all right, like, she accepts the marriage, like, let's have this thing kick off. So that's, of course, when Sam leaps, and he leaps into Jesse Tyler from an episode from season 1. Because I guess if we were to ever have gone on and watched this show, I guess we would have to watch it out of order for some goofy reason. So with that said, that goes on and covers most of these episodes. I hope I got on and stated everything that happens in here. Hopefully I didn't state anything that had offended anybody or whichever. That's not what I was to state or mean or whatever. And I always want to state that through all of these episodes. So let me know if there's something that I forgot, because maybe I'll rebuttal for the next time I do this, whenever I can. I'm really trying to get these out, but also realize that there's always a ton of new releases that come out every day. Or really, there's just sometimes where I'm either burnt out or I'm just tired from kind of reviewing things every single day. That'll just kind of get to a point where I just want something easy, I just want something simple, and Quantum Leap may not just be that. So forgive me for any time that I'm to not get these out frequent enough. Or people can go on and kind of set these on their watch to say, like, okay, he's going to go on and put this out on this day and this whatever. Like, please know that I'm probably going to try to even get these out more, realizing that there is a number of shows that are all going on breaks right now. Especially even Quantum Leap 2022, that seems to be going on a couple months hiatus from what I've been told. People can go on and correct me and say, oh no, like, the show is coming back on so-and-so date. And I'm like, okay, all right, like, I didn't know. So I guess we're just going to have to go in on watching the original series until the other show comes back. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.